High school students need a more connected and collaborative way to study and explore their futures together. Our guest co-founded a social learning company that is democratizing learning and empowering high school students through educational content, community, and collaboration. Oh my gosh, we're going to learn so much from this extraordinary edtech founder. Stay tuned for the Start of Life live show. Let's glow, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Startup Life live show. I'm your host, Ande, Lyons, 4 times founder and startup champion, 2 founders around the world. And after raising 4 businesses of my own, I now share diverse founder stories, their startup stories, to help newly minted business owners get the inspiration and solutions they need to succeed. And I am so grateful that you carved out time to tune in and up your founder game, because as you do better, your business will do better. And we learn so much from other founders, right? How they figured things out, because every day we're struggling through the problem solving in our brains. If you're joining us live or via replay, please say hello in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you. Any questions that you have for the guest. And of course, be sure to amplify your business. All right, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But while you're at it, if you could share your love wherever you're watching, because we're live right now and the video will be archived on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. And by clicking on that like button, it'll go out into your feed. And you never know, the ripple effect from helping another founder out there, it's profound. And speaking of YouTube, if you have not subscribed already, I'd be so grateful for a subscribe, because I am creeping up onto that big milestone on YouTube, 1,000 subscribers. So I appreciate you adding wind to the sails of the Startup Life live show. It helps us reach more founders. And did you know that you can listen to the show as well? That's right. On any of your favorite podcast platforms, you can just hop on my website. I have the podcast right there. You hit play, and that way it's just a little easier with your earbuds or ear pods to grab everything that's going on. And how do you know when we are having a new show? Well, you join the Startup Life Live meetup group. How cool is that? Every time I post a new show, you never know, there's going to be a founder there that you might want to learn from. So scan that QR code or visit bit.ly/Startup Life Live and join the group so you'll always know. And hey, do you resonate with amplifying diverse founder voices? Because I got to tell you, come on over and talk to me about sponsorship, because this will really help make a greater impact on the startup ecosystem through sponsoring the Startup Life live show. Ande Lyons, we can give you all the numbers and all the stats you need. So let's get into the good news here, which is our amazing guest. I'm going to pull up his slide right here. I am so excited to introduce the one, the only Tán Ho. He's the co-founder and chief operating officer at Fiveable, a social learning company that has carved out a large presence in the edtech space with its platform that connects students and teachers for virtual after-school help sessions via live streaming. And since 2018, the startup has provided more than 7 million high school students with advancement placement, test prep, and support. And with his own unique awesome sauce of spanning design, growth, marketing, product development, and student success, Tán has helped Fiveable grow into a startup that supports millions of students around the globe. And you know, he's got the stories to share. Let's bring him into the room and welcome our phenomenal guest, Tán. And I got the pom-pom today. Yay!
Yeah, you got the pom-pom. Hi, everybody. How's it going? Ande, thank you so much for having me.
I am so happy to see you here. Where are you hailing from?
I'm currently in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay.
I'm from upstate New York, but we've kind of moved our headquarters to Wisconsin.
Oh, wow. And hey, I'm just going to say hi to a few folks who are tuning in. Hey, Abraham, founder of Pitch Gauge, everybody, an incredible app. He's extraordinary. Judy Lee, yay. I agree. We're also excited to hear from Tán, and David Chang. one of Boston's favorite angel investors ever. So happy to see you here, David. Yay, I'm waving back and wishing you and your family just amazing holiday season. That's the beauty of going live, Tán, is I get to see all my friends too, and they swing by and say hi, and also get to amplify other founder voices. So let me just remind everybody, first of all, we love to amplify your brand. So be sure and feel free to take this moment and throw in your business name, your one-liner, and your website. We'll bring it up on the screen, and Tán and I will cheer you on and just wish you tons of success in 2022. And if you have any comments or questions, please pop them in the comment section, because we all learn from each other. So good. All right. So Tán, you have an interesting background. You always like to talk about how you weren't getting prepared. Like, there is no school, folks, all right, for founder journey. But, you've got a little deep background in digital marketing and growth strategies. Tell us a little bit about how you segued into entrepreneurship. What happened?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess we'll go all the way back to high school, and I'll try to go as fast as possible on that front. But I don't know if y'all have heard of the website MySpace, but
oh my gosh, you're really taking us back in history.
Yeah, it's a throwback. Back when I was on MySpace, I actually learned how to code and design through just creating MySpace layouts in high school, and I kind of did that for the high school students around me in Utica, New York, where I grew up. From there, since then, I've always had this interest in like graphic design and marketing as kind of like a hobby at that point in my life. And then I went to college in Buffalo, New York at Canisius College. And then I ended up majoring in biology pre-med, which is totally against what I wanted to do. Obviously, I was like, everybody around me is telling me, marketing and design was not the right path forward in order to like build a life for yourself. And so I completely like caved and like studied something I was not interested in at all.
As one does when they're young. We get influenced by others' dreams for us versus our dreams for us.
And so after I did a year of biology pre-med in college, I completely bombed. I had like a 1.6 GPA. I was like, this might not be for me. I got put on academic probation, and then that's when my advisors at the time told me, maybe you should look at something else. And so that's when I actually took up the mantle of like graphic design, marketing, communications as my majors.
Excellent.
And then from there, kind of like everything turned around for me, right? I blew past every semester with like a 4.0, and that's when I knew it was like what I wanted to do, and kind of had built a really solid foundation for the rest of my career.
That's right. You found your sweet spot, and you had a wonderful advisor show up for you and say, let's focus on something that you're good at. And of course, you soared at it and you excelled at it. Did you start hustling with your digital marketing skills in college, or when you left college, did you go on to get a job somewhere? How did that transition work out?
Yeah, I mean, I was a young designer and marketer, and nobody would give me a chance. And so I actually ended up starting my own kind of like, unofficial freelance marketing agency, and started looking for clients on my own. I was on Craigslist, I was on Reddit, I was on all these online websites trying to find my first clients. And so I managed to find a few in New York City, real estate companies, and just like some random, really small businesses. And that really showed me that, I can actually do this. People are giving me a shot, and now I just had to prove that,
right.
I can do this. So
and had you had role models for entrepreneurship growing up, or had you been hustling product and ideas when you were in elementary school? Or was this like out of desperation, right? Yeah, we all get called to entrepreneurship in different ways. What role models did you have, though, and any at all?
Honestly, I didn't have any role models like around me. I saw like what was happening out in the world, but not personally connected to anything, right? My mom barely spoke English, and I had to like teach her English over time, but she didn't really know anything about entrepreneurship, small business, anything like that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really until like I would say, I was exposed a little bit in college, but I think once I actually met Amanda, that's when we started to explore what that meant together, and kind of and neither of us came from like really traditional business backgrounds either. So
Well, and that's so exciting to hear. For many folks who go and start a business, thinking that they might need to have been exposed in certain areas. One of my favorite stories, Tán, is the Squarespace guy. He started in college, so when he started to really scale, hiring people, I mean, he'd never been hired himself. Was that your situation as well?
I'd been hired in a lot of different. I had a lot of different jobs in a lot of different industries. I was working at a sausage making factory. I was at an architecture firm. So
Perfect.
it was definitely not a traditional path. I don't think in entrepreneurship you don't need a traditional path to enter that space. And so I don't want anybody else to feel like you have to have certain credentials or anything, because I certainly did not.
That's right. And folks, just because someone has, quote, an MBA or an undergrad in entrepreneurship, that's nice. Maybe they got some business skills and they have an academic understanding of what this founder journey may be like. But Tán is absolutely right. There's nothing that prepares you for it until you start doing it.
Yeah, that's all theoretical. Like, congratulations to the people who get like masters and all that. But at least for us, we don't even look at educational backgrounds when we're hiring, and yes, our educational background helped in some ways, but it wasn't like the end all be all, right? And so that should never be a blocker for anybody.
Right. It really, at the end of the day, is your portfolio, folks. What have you learned? What's the added value that you can bring? What can you demonstrate? I love that. Now, before we dive into Fiveable and how you and Amanda met, I'd love to know, like, what did you grab out of those first few years of hustling on your own, meeting clients' expectations or disappointing them, all the different things that you have when you're providing freelance services. Talk a little bit about how that helped prepare you to be a founder, if at all.
For sure. I think one of the most important things is just like putting yourself out there and like telling other people that I can help solve your problems if you give me the chance, and then you prove them right over and over. Or you learn with the client along the way that some of these strategies or tactics are not working, and maybe we can work together to kind of like overcome these things. And at the end of the day, like, starting a business is all about problem solving, for the world, for your team, for anything that comes up. And I think that that is one of like the core ingredients for any like good founder, is to really at least have a solid grasp on how to even approach solving a problem. Everybody will approach it differently, but at least like building up your experience in that realm.
You're so right, Tán. You have to be curious, folks. You have to look at problems and not go running from the room, screaming, pulling your hair like you're on fire. You really have to look at that problem and go, okay, maybe it's a big, hairy problem right now that's frightening me, but just sit with it, pull yourself out of, and be an observer as if you were on an experiment in the chemistry lab. But and really put to work, because creativity shows up in many different ways. And I may not be able to draw a straight line or draw anything, frankly, but I always said my creativity was in problem solving. And I think many founders can have that happen. Oh my gosh. So that, that experience definitely laid the foundation for transferable skills that you would bring to Fiveable. So let's talk about Fiveable, because I was so curious how you and Amanda met. I mean, Amanda, I just want to wave down the highway, down 495, because she grew up in Marlboro, which is right down the road from me here in Massachusetts. And I'm so excited to hear how you guys met, because co-founder journeys are fascinating.
Oh, yeah. In 2018, I had reached a point in my old job where I was like, you know what, this place has no culture. Like, I'm the only person in the office most of the time. Like, I feel like there could be a better environment for me to thrive. And so I kind of just left that job with no backup plan, to my detriment. When they say have a backup plan, have a backup plan. But I just left. I took several months off, and then those several months kind of like spiraled into like half a year, and then like a whole year. And so at the time I was like really looking for a job. I was couch surfing. I was looking on Reddit again. Like, one of my favorite places to look for people online is Reddit. And that's what led me to Amanda's post. I think it was like in the like our freelance or our for hire like subreddits. And so I saw Amanda's post about a startup house, and I was like, this is interesting. I was like, I need a job and a place to stay, but I also want to make an impact. And it seems like this has all of that tied into one. And
Wait a minute, a startup house?
yeah.
I've
Startup
heard
health,
of I've heard of
yeah.
that in San Francisco. Where was this?
This was in Philly, in Philadelphia.
Oh
So
gosh.
Amanda had, she had a little bit of money to her name, and then she rented out a house, furnished it and everything, and then invited a couple of people to come and work with her. Amanda and I are the original people left of the original exec team, but I think we met each other on Reddit. So
okay, folks, online dating for co-founders works too. Okay.
yeah, I mean, yeah, we both, it only took an hour phone call to like really figure out, are we the right people to do this together? And we found out that yes, we did. We were both, I think we were both really hungry to like prove ourselves, and also, when you aren't able to find the opportunity or the culture or the people that you want to work with or for, you sometimes just come to the realization that you have to do it yourself.
Tán, I've got a confession to make. I often introduce myself as, hello, my name is Ande. I've been unemployable since 1992. I fell off the wagon a few times and fired myself. It's the same thing, folks. A lot of times we just don't fit into those cultures. And sometimes you have to go out and do what Tán and Amanda did, which is create a culture that will fit you, as well as launching a business and creating an environment for other folks that may not fit in more traditional spaces and places. So I'm so grateful for the two of you. So you were hanging out in the startup house, which is like, there's got to be a show. It's got to be a reality TV show, the startup house.
It definitely could have been.
And was it just a bunch of people living together and launching a business? How did that work?
Yeah, I mean, it was four of us. We were, some of us were working other jobs. Like I was working at restaurants in the day, coming back to Fiveable at night, and I'm working late into the morning. And but that was kind of like our life, right? We kind of just made it work. I was like the chef of the house. I would make like group meals, and we didn't have that much money, so we were like making like gourmet meals out of like canned food, and it was kind of great.
And ramen, come on, ramen is an important staple.
But yeah,
And so was it along the way that you and Amanda's thought, okay, we've got this idea to help democratize education? I mean, something had to trigger in you a moment where you both like, we are so passionate about fixing a problem that we're seeing. Talk a little bit about that, because it's a little hard to come up with an idea for a business, right? But to then also have that super North Star in you that helps you get through those big dips in the roller coaster ride. Share a little bit about that, Tán.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Amanda was a high school teacher in Oakland, and so she came from an education background, right? Whereas I was coming at it from a very different lens, and so I personally never saw myself in education. I thought I would only be in marketing and design, but I was like, oh wait, I can take these skills and actually apply them to other industries, right? So, so once I met Amanda, like our North Star was help young people. That is the sole mission that we have, right? Is to help young people, and the best way to do that, in our opinion, is through education. And so, knowing that was true, Amanda had started off in live streaming because that was the only way she could reach her students after she moved away from Oakland to continue supporting them.
So what year was this?
I think this was about 2018, probably mid 2018.
So were you using what for live stream? Blab, Google Plus, what was out there?
There's several different platforms, but Crowdcast was a big one.
Crowdcast, yes, of course. They all come and go.
Yeah.
So often.
They're never all perfect for exactly what you need, but it did the job. We were live streaming. We were getting hundreds to thousands of students per stream. And so we realized that was really working. And then we kind of expanded into different AP subjects and different areas. And over time, we kind of grew that library.
Well, let's step back just a little, because it's one thing to say, I want to live stream. Another to say, I want to help kids out, and I specifically high school students. And I think education is going to be the best way to bring that generation, our Gen Zs, what they need to succeed in life and help them get positioned for the future of work. But it's a total other thing to A, come up with a name, and B, get people to show up. So first of all, let me just ask you, how did you come up with the name Fiveable? What does that mean, and how do you brand that?
That's funny. Amanda's mom actually came up with the name Fiveable, and it was mostly focused on the AP kind of sphere of what we do. The highest score on an AP exam is a 5. So it's kind of centered around that. But now that we are expanding way beyond APs, way beyond just college, SAT, ACT, or test prep in general, we're gonna have to do some work to redefine that. But I think that's kind of like where it originated.
No, now I get it completely. Fiveable, meaning it's achievable to get the 5 on the AP score, and we're going to help you get there. You're fiveable.
Yeah.
Love that.
If you break it down, it's more just about like, you can do this. Anybody can do this if you are supported in the right ways, right? And so that's
high five it.
Exactly.
I love it. Hey, Jadelyn, I hope I'm saying that correctly. I'm so happy you're tuned in, and I'm thrilled to hear that you're a huge fan of Tán and the Fiveable team. Thank you so much. It's always interesting to hear how a company comes from the idea stage, right? Ideation to implementation to growth and funding and scaling. Hearing how Tán and Amanda came together is so important, because I know some of you are out there struggling. Do I do a co-founder? Don't I do a co-founder? How do I get to the next step? One of the experiences that you're bringing to the table, and maybe Amanda was good at this as well, Tán, is that digital marketing. You knew how to get on Reddit. You knew where the age group, your customer segment, was hanging out. So I want to go to my next question and say, all right, so you start live streaming and connecting with these students. How did you get them to show up? The attention span as a mom of a Gen Z and a gamer Gen Z, if I wanted to get his attention, I'd have to create an avatar and get on one of the games and just to say dinner's ready. How did you do this? How did you connect and get them to show up?
Yeah, so let me start off by saying Amanda is a unicorn of a person. She's just a unicorn. And she had the instinct of like a lot of these like initial growth strategies. She was calling teachers, she was emailing people, she was telling teachers to let their students know about all these streams that were happening that were free or anything like that. And so lots of lead magnets and just like cold outreach. But I think the most important thing for us to get across to young people is that we are here to help, and we're trying to do that in the most authentic way, and we understand your potential learning styles or how you prefer to learn, and we want to acknowledge all of those realities. And I think when your audience can sense your like authenticity or you being genuine, then they'll at least be open to hearing what you have to say.
Absolutely. And how did you know getting these scores was important to them? I mean, some high school grads are just like, I just want to graduate. And Seth Godin talks a lot about how we educate our public student schools in a way that still suits the blue collar manufacturing industry, not the future of work. We need more problem solving. We need more you can do it, and taking and asking our students to rise up. Are you able to not get, did you just get the overachievers, or did you get the folks who may not have considered going for an AP test?
Yeah.
Or doing better?
I think it's both. A lot of AP students, are typically regarded as like really smart people, but I think they're just hard workers, right? And I think anybody can be a hard and diligent worker, and so that is not a boundary. But the difference was like, these different types of audiences of students were all resourced differently, right? As they grew up. For example, Amanda and I, we didn't have like the best resources. We couldn't afford private tutors or anything like that, and so like that was the initial, or I would say like that is one of the root, reasons of like why we're building an education company. We know that there's so many different inequities. Like I was a first generation low income student, no resources, no people in my family finished high school or college. And
here you are breaking, the generational paradigm by getting advanced education in high school.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
I appreciate that. And so, I hate hearing the word like gifted and like, unique or special, like all these things. And I think every student has the opportunity, and we have to do better as a society, just like prepare them better, right? To support them better. And I think like that will go a long way.
100% on that. Uh, Abraham, I agree with you. He says, thank you, Tán. Your startup story is so beautiful. So I agree. It is, finding the pathways to success and to, yes, I recently shared my own graduate school experience, Tán, where the school I wanted to go to, an all women's MBA program here in Boston at Simmons University, told me not once but twice, we don't accept students with GMAT scores that low. But I knew I was a terrible test taker, but I didn't have Fiveable to help me.
Yeah.
And so, I went and found other ways to help them make the decision to say yes, i.e. I took intensive algebra and expository writing and statistics and got the grades that they needed to see so I could prove, because like, forget those tests. But so I just want to share that little side story, everyone, to have this kind of support system that Fiveable brings is amazing. But now neither of you have a tech background other than, digital marketing, right?
Yeah.
So how did you figure that out? Because that's a problem for many founders. Everyone, you remember on the last show, our wonderful guest, Amy, shared how her developer, product dev, disappeared, ghosted, and took the code with him. And they had to start from scratch. I mean, there are so many horror stories around the technology part. How did you figure that out, you and Amanda?
Oh Lord. In the early days, when you don't come from a tech background, you don't have programming skills, like you have to absolutely invest in like low code or no code solutions, right? And that's like the future, is like, how can we provide people with the right tech tools to build really cool stuff without having to know like all the intricacies of like coding, right? Not everybody has the aptitude to learn how to code. I definitely don't. At least like really advanced coding. I know like HTML, CSS, and all that, but
right.
Well, I think that's how we got our starters. It's like really looking into low code and no code tools like Airtable, WordPress, all those things.
Excellent. And folks, you can create a beta, right, Tán, with some of the simplest things. Even a Wix website, you could create a beta, right?
Yeah. For example, like when we were building like our alpha community, we were building it in a space where students already were, right, which is Discord. And Discord is about like 30,000 people now, and so really you don't need to like reinvent the wheel every time you want to do something. Like use what you have or what you have access to. Right.
And so then did you eventually get somebody on board full time so you could give them direction?
Oh yeah. So when we were building our WordPress website, I was manually updating it for the dozens of events that we were having every single day or week, and then Austin was our first CTO, Austin Monroe, and he helped take the WordPress website and convert it into a actual like React product with like a platform that we can actually use, and it'll auto update and all those things. And then Aaron Levin, our current head of engineering, has kind of like expanded that way beyond like what it initially was. And so shout out to Aaron, because he is just like a little mad genius.
It's so helpful to have those folks on board. But in the meantime, let's just look a little bit at the timeline. You came together, you had this idea. I'm sure you got in places like Reddit, et cetera, to drive the traffic to the live stream, to start having the conversations with your customer segment. Now, did you go after the students? Because folks, when you're an ed tech company, you've got a few customer segments you're going after, because you got to have the parents sometimes involved because somebody's got to pay for this, right? Sometimes you have to get, what's really hard is the educational institutions on board. And that's a whole nother struggle. Yeah. How did you, Amanda, work all of that out as well as you started to talk to the students, learn from them? How did you start to figure out the pricing model and reaching the folks who were going to slap down the credit card?
Yeah, I mean, for full disclaimer, we are still figuring out our business model. So all of our content right now is free. And so we're still, we have some time to figure out what that all looks like. But I think for us, at the root of what we do, it's all about relationships. And if we can build trust with students, right? And, two ways of doing that was, one, through teachers. Like, so really building a relationship with teachers and getting them on board. And once we built their trust, they would usually, tell their students about Fiveable. Then the other route was going directly to students, which we are fully focused on right now, is that direct to consumer piece. And I think going directly to students, they are, they're given resources a lot of the time, and sometimes those resources don't get all the way to them. So there might be some blocker along the way that prevents them from getting the right resources, or the teachers, tell them to use other things. And so we really have to like grapple with that reality and kind of show them why this is the place where they should spend their time.
Right. And also harnessing those students, not only don't have the resources, no one's saying high fiveable to them.
Yeah, exactly. And so, we really had to build a really student-centric platform that they would love, and then they would go and tell their friends, right? That's our goal. It's just like build a platform that students will love and hang out at and share with their friends.
Well, let's dive into a platform students will love. What does that mean? Because there are all types of students, right?
Yeah.
And so what makes it sticky for a student to keep coming back? What's the experience? And folks, you've got to go over to Think Fiveable on Instagram, because you're going to see, and I imagine, are you on TikTok as well?
We're on TikTok for sure.
Yeah. So, you're going to see some great students engagement happening. So was it basically giving them the space and the platform from which they can express and create community amongst themselves? So you sort of took yourself out of the equation?
Yeah. Traditionally, young people and high school students in general have no power in society. They can't vote. They can't, change the systems around them. And that's really frustrating, right? And for us, we want to give them space to create, to discuss, or just like to be themselves. Like it's really hard for for students to find places where they really just feel like they're heard. And so but we can provide that. We are we are building that space for them, because as students, as young people ourselves, like we wanted those things too. And so how can we continue to propagate that for future generations of students? And so
and is there like I'm always fascinated by the language, and again, as a mom of a very young end of the generational world for millennial, kind of cuspy with Gen Z and a firmly entrenched Gen Z, creating that space is so important. And what is it inside of you, though, and Amanda, that you felt that you had that deeper understanding? I know I'm probing here, but not everybody can do this, folks. I'm just so amazed by Amanda and Tán on how they have had this reach. I mean, you heard me say earlier, 7 million students around the globe. Okay, they have helped, and I'm sure it's more now. And that is a huge impact. So, and I know that you and Amanda were sensing that we're driven by wanting to create inclusivity and equity among the students as well. But, it's playful time too, right? So what did you tap in among yourselves that helped you see what they needed?
I think for Amanda and I, it's all about community building, right? At its core, Fiveable is this like essence that you belong and you matter to us. Even if we don't know each other, like you still matter, and we see your potential and whatever that means. And I think that will ripple effect through everything that Amanda and I do and what we believe in. And so having that root be like, this is a community where you can come and go. You can come as you are and then leave as you need to, and step aside, when you need. I think that made it really comfortable for students to just like be themselves while they're with us. If they're just hanging out on the live streams, like sometimes students would just show up and like there'd be a chat box, and like that's where students would hang out, right? They know that there's hundreds of students there, and then like, of course I'm gonna hang out here. There's like so many people like me. Like I don't really care about AP Bio, but I'm gonna hang out with like these 500 people that are here and like talk. And so.
And I have a personal deep appreciation for that. Again, as a mom of a gamer, the conversations that our son would have with everybody, the strategy, the pulling together, the laughter, the let's get serious. We only have 12,000 left. We can only buy so much, everything that they did all online. And really, they were only like a half a mile away, most of these kids. But as well as internationally. So I know how important that community is with no one watching, so to speak, and having that independence and that connection where it can all happen. And folks, the reason I especially dove deep is that with our businesses, there could be another ed tech company tomorrow that's like Fiveable, right? Disrupting the space, all of that. It doesn't matter. Tán and Amanda have created a vibe, a culture that helps them connect with their tribe and differentiate themselves from others. So that's a little bit about why I went deeper into that conversation, Tán, because we always want to make sure we carve out a lane for our businesses. And that's what you've done. And let's face it, Gen Z are really astute consumers, right? And so, most folks will go to the parents and say, this is what your parents need. And I just love that you and Amanda made it so that this is the students were driving this. Now, you fully launched in beta where you were hanging out and starting to do the live stream. That was, what did you say, 2018?
Yeah, 2018, 2019 is when we really expanded that.
Right. And so how did you fund this? Were you doing family and friends? Were you winning pitch event contests where you got in kind or some cash?
Yeah.
How did you bootstrap your way initially?
Amanda joined an accelerator early, and I think she had earned about 20K in funding, and then that's when I joined, and we had started the Fiveable House. We're like, we have this amount of money, we have this window of time to like prove ourselves. And then, we were very close to like running out, and we've been close to running out of money several times early on. And then once we were about to hit like that moment again, back in 2019, we got accepted into this program in Madison, Wisconsin called Generator. And Generator is a startup accelerator. They are really awesome people, helping lots of small businesses become like really full-fledged startup companies. And so from there, it kind of just ballooned into like something that we had never even thought of.
Wow. Okay, let's talk a little bit about that because, folks, did you have to give up any equity, or was this a nonprofit accelerator?
We had to give up a little bit of equity in exchange for like 100K in funding, and we just had like their massive support network. But we don't talk about it too much, but we beat out like 1,200 companies to get into that program, and Amanda is really good at pitching and fundraising, and so props to her for like getting us into that program.
Oh, huge props, worth it. And let's talk a little bit about that pitching. I'm at this point, I'm like, where's Amanda? I got to make this this woman. I made the unicorn, the one who can win and do all of this. The pitching for your business, even if you're just out there. I'm always encouraging founders, pitch anytime you can, because you're going to get a ton of great advice and feedback for your business that you need. Some of it can go in the trash, but most of it you need that free advice. And sometimes you can win, and sometimes you can get into an accelerator. It's so important. But at the same time, and as a woman who's raised millions from VC and thousands from angels, there's bias out there. And so you two come as a co-founder team. And what did you experience? Because a lot of the viewers here are diverse founders who are up against some really tough conscious or unconscious bias when they pitch. What was some of the experiences that you had that you could share with our viewers and listeners that they can take away from it?
Yeah, during our mentor swarm, I was talking to this one of the mentors, and I had no idea how to even talk about company finances, but at the time I was like doing my best, and then his response was, you are going to be the downfall of this company. And so people just like do not trust you if you do not come with that background, right, that experience. And I think that especially more diverse founders, we will continue to experience that, right? Even women getting like less than 3% of funding, like, is wild to me. And then they're on top of that, founders of color. You have to go the extra mile to even be like, I deserve a seat at the table. It's not like I deserve a seat at the table. Here's how I'm going to change things. It's like that entry point.
Not only that, Tán, this is, gets me every time, right? You have to jump through more hoops, a diverse founder. For example, Clubhouse, right? They only launched in iOS. millions and millions of dollars at a huge valuation.
Mm-hmm.
No diverse founder could have received that kind of money with only one application being built.
Yeah.
And sorry, just would never have happened.
Yeah.
They would have said, nope, you got to have iOS and Android, and you got to do this, you got to do that. You know, my advice to everybody too, from what I've seen, is when you start getting those questions, and you will get them, diverse founders, I'm sorry, they're going to be not, oh, what are you going to do when you win? Which is what many of the white male founders get. It's more like, well, what are you going to do when things go wrong? And so you have to keep bringing them back to the vision. And I'm thinking Amanda probably got real good at this. Yes, bringing them back to how you were going to nail it. Was that your experience, Tán?
Yeah, we had to continue to prove ourselves and really like shape our story without polluting it with the ideas of other people, and without, you know, diluting what we wanted to build. And I think as diverse founders, that will if you're not careful, that will happen to you faster than others, because, you know, you have all these voices around you telling you to change what you're doing, or to think about it differently, or forget this and do this instead. And I think that's where resilience comes in, because you have to push past all of that, right? And really, you know, be consistent with your vision, because if you buckle, then everybody else will be able to dictate where your company heads, and you don't want that.
Boy, is that the truth. And I just have to tell everybody I'm having an ANDELICIOUS moment here. Hold on, I just got to be with it. First of all, Tán, don't let others dilute and pollute your story. I have goosebumps. That's so important to take away. And also, you know, leveraging your mentors so that you can hit the number conversation. You know, folks, numbers are numbers, all right? You don't have to build the financial model, but you can learn how to look at that financial model and nail those numbers, and be able to talk about the LTV CAC ratio, and, you know, customer acquisition and long-term value of the folks. And I'm just going to put another little slide up here for a second, Tán. And if you want to know how to calculate all that, go see my video on YouTube about that. But also, you know, what you said about, you know, really making sure that you hold on to that vision, because folks will give you feedback and you'll go, are they right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden you start doubting yourself. And so you and Amanda had to stay strong, right?
Yeah, I think we knew what students wanted, because they were telling us exactly what they wanted. And, you know, most people who talk to students, they don't really listen to young people, right? Think they try to figure out what's best for them, and then they'll take pieces of what they say, but they don't really fully listen to young people. And I think that is the difference between what Amanda and I are doing compared to everybody else.
I agree 100%, just from witnessing everything that you're doing. And Peter is talking about neurodiverse on the platform too. Folks, I got to tell you, we're all neurodiverse at the end of the day. How we process things, how we don't process things, the speed at which we process, we are different. It's no longer the traditional learning methods. How do you work with neurodiversity on the platform?
I think we bring a lot of different student perspectives. Everything is student-led, right? So students are reading everything. They are oftentimes the best educators for each other. And so, you know, we have a range of students, some of who are neurodiverse as well. And so giving students a full like buffet of different options, and kind of like content types and all of that, and backed by like the power of community, we've been able to surface what students need, whether if it's like a, you know, a processing thing, or if it's just like a content, like media kind of thing, right? And so we have a variety of options.
That's right. And I love that, because, you know, folks, do not take the messages because you don't learn the same way that the schools want you to learn. You are, as we say in Boston, wicked smart. You can do this, and Fiveable is going to help you do that for sure. So get back to the funding, because that's so important. You had a wonderful Series A round in September. That's just, you know, yay for you too. Anybody wants to learn more, you can go on to Crunchbase and find out more. But, you know, you are nailing it. But to get up to that point, what did you see change about your pitch? What was it that excited investors about what you were doing?
Yeah, it's really about like, there's so many students around in the US, but also around the world, right? In the US, there's almost 20 million high school students. In the world,
Yeah.
there's over 600 million secondary students. But universally, students have like are experiencing the same type of issues right now: isolation, connection, of like cut off, like being cut off of resources. Like they're all going through that in a lot of different ways, and so over the time, we've been able to really refine our story while still sticking true to this piece of like we want to support young people. How we do that will evolve over time, right?
Yes.
Initially, it was content, but like to be honest, students can find content anywhere. Like if you are thinking about any type of learning program, you can find content anywhere online. You can teach yourself. Um,
Oh, Abraham knows all about that. He did a Hackintosh so he could create the Macintosh version of his app. He took
yeah,
his old Toshiba and turned it into a Mac, and so he could do that. And as he says, it was all YouTube. And then when he had to do it for Android, it was all YouTube.
yeah,
So you're absolutely right. Here's something I think is interesting too. There's a really tough culture out there that isn't talked a lot about, which is called the bro culture.
hmm
Okay. And, women are seeing it left and right. And frankly, we've just about had it. There's a lot of built in misogyny in it. And there's, 35 and under. So what um, employers have learned over this period with the pandemic is that women coders, women out of that tech cubicle having to listen to all of that chatter has really helped them.
hmm
And though the isolation can be tough, there is also not having to get caught up in the bro culture situation. That made me think about our students, of course, having to go home and learn and not have all of that, the wonderful things that in community that can happen at school. But is there a saving grace in that as well? Is there the opportunity for them to avoid being bullied or being put down because now they're in a safe space for learning because they found it virtually and online and with their tribe?
hmm Yeah, I mean, like we can't guarantee that every space will be safe, but we can always do things to set them up for success, right?
Right.
And I think, at Fiveable, it comes from us. Like the example that we set will ripple down to, where how these students are hanging out with each other, how they're communicating with each other. Can we build a culture of where students can help each other, where they can feel grateful for each other? And so
Yeah.
I think those are like the root ingredients. And in terms of how do you build a space where students do feel safer, and that's it's at least in that regard it's a little bit top down too.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And you guys have created, as you said, the root culture for that. And so let me just tap into, because again, congratulations on making the investors happy. That's going to give you a ton of win for your sales to go and reach more folks. But as far as, expanding from okay, here's the high school, this group, how will you keep your thumb on the pulse going forward? And how do you think you might serve um, the student body in preparing them for college to be self-advocates, to maybe learn online?
Yeah,
And will you be going after some, creating spaces for higher education or down in our elementary school?
I think for the foreseeable future we'll stick with high school students,
Mhm.
but our definition of high school students will expand from like the 19 million to the 600 plus worldwide. I think just in general, like learners are who we cater to, right? And
Right.
honestly, you can be a learner at any age, and so I'm not saying like learning ends at a certain point, but for us, it's important to really reach students in this pivotal moment in their lives, right?
Yeah.
How you experience high school or secondary school will set you up for the future in a lot of different ways, and
That's right.
that's like coming from personal experiences, right? Amanda and I, like, we had to learn a lot, and that kind of like set us up for how we look at things and how we believe in things.
Oh, Ton, I completely understand. I mean, I'm, old now, but when I was in high school, I was voted class individual because that's the lane I had to be in
Yeah.
to, just like, you're not going to cage me, folks. I'm going to be over here in this
That was
lane. And
fun. Yeah, fun fact, I was voted most likely to bring home to mom and dad.
perfect. I can see that too, for sure.
I was
Oh
like,
my
okay.
gosh. So you learned a lot about growth hacking in all the prior work you did, and I'm sure you've learned a lot, as you've built the Fiveable brand over the years. Can you give other founders a quick little growth hack idea to just, as far as how they can really leverage digital marketing in a way that doesn't leave them exhausted and confused?
Oh yeah, I mean, it'll probably leave you exhausted, but not as confused.
Okay.
At least in my background, I specialized in search engine optimization and content marketing. And so, as an entrepreneur, you are going to come up against this. If you're like us at the beginning, where you don't have resources to invest in a marketing budget. And for us, we knew that one, students are Googling their homework all the time, and two, like how do we, and that content is one of the easiest things for us to create because we're educators, we're content creators, we're not programmers, but at least we can create that content, and then we can optimize that so that students can find it, right? That the main marketing goal is just like show up when students are looking for any like homework help. And that was like what we did.
Aha.
To this day, we've probably had over 10, 11 million users now.
Say that loud with people in the back, please.
We have almost 10 million users now, and like most of that is organic traffic.
Oh my gosh, folks, organic traffic works. Put the search engine optimization, or if you're an app, use the App Store optimization, and find people who know how to do it if you can't. I love that advice. So you and Amanda, it's one thing, folks, to go and raise a nice chunk of change for your business from investors, but all of a sudden, you've got to manage those investors and their expectations, make sure they don't dilute and pollute what you've got going on for your vision. But at the same time, it adds another layer of pressure for the founder to deliver. How are you navigating that time?
I think for Amanda and I, like we don't have prior experience in the space, and I think that's exciting. But it's also that has its caveats too, and so I think leverage your support networks because they're there to help you, but you have to really go to them with a good understanding of like what you need, right? What kind of questions do you have? Right. And really figuring out what those questions are. Questions that you can't have answered by like a Google search. Like those are the things that you should go to your investors, your board for, because they're there to help you and they're there to help you succeed, right? They invested in you for. And we have the most amazing board who is just like cheering for us, and they have helped us even in the last week just like really unblock a whole ton of things. So.
See, and that's the beauty, folks. If you can look at your investors, like we saw, David Chang in the beginning, he's an operator investor. And that means he's there to answer those tough questions, or at least bring his brain smarty pants to the equation. Those are the kind of investors you want to have on board. And of course, your board of advisors who are really so excited about you winning. What can the Startup Live community do to add wind to your sails right now? What are you working on that's hard that perhaps someone tuning in can go, oh, I can add some wind to that?
Yeah. And so like, as I mentioned earlier, like we are shifting from a content model to more of a community model. And I think, I think the biggest thing is just like, if you know a student in high school, like let them know about Fiveable. And I think really understanding like how their problems have evolved over time, right? Especially with the pandemic, how our students learning these days is not the same as before. That's why we've kind of shifted our model a bit to reflect that reality. Like again, content you can find anywhere, but like community, that connection is you can't. It's really hard to find.
It's really hard to find. It's really hard to create. So I just want to applaud you and Amanda and the team again for creating that feeling of community among a group of, folks that are so important and our future. So it's just so beautiful. You talked about your founder support is so important, right? To be able to talk to other peers, your investors, folks who've been where you are are right now. But when you have felt inadequate, when you have felt like, oh my God, there's the biggest L on my forehead, I do not know what I'm going to do. Or when someone tells you like, you're going to tank this company,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that can just undermine one's confidence. When that's happened, what kind of mindset hack have you used to just bring you right back and get you back on purpose?
I mean, we are where we are, and those people who said those things are where they're at, right? And we have moved way past them in terms of like their early judgment. And so for me, it's like, you made it this far, keep going, right?
Yes.
Those voices will always be there, and I think it's the work that you have to do is like silence those things, and how you can do that is like continue growing, continue learning, and continue failing, because that's going to happen. If you always try to prevent yourself from failing, then you're kind of getting rid of a lot of good opportunities for you to learn. And so
That's right.
that's like the biggest thing.
I love that something fierce. Be willing to make mistakes, folks, because it teaches you what you want to know and you don't want, and what does work and what doesn't work. So I love that something fierce. And now, you've been on this entrepreneurship journey for a while. And I'm always saying, Tán, it's the best personal development program out there, right? It tests you on every level of your life, your faith, your conviction, your confidence, as well as your acumen. How has this journey enhanced you both personally and professionally?
I think it's helped me focus more outward in terms of like the things I want to do, right? Before, I felt like I was just a young person who was very egocentric, and I was kind of just doing things on my own, and I didn't really think about the kind of impact that I wanted to make on others. But I think this work, especially this work in education, has helped me realign like what I actually believe in, my values, and so that they feel they feel really representative of like my actual values. And so I've also learned like just to be accountable, right? Like my actions for my words, like we are working with an impressionable audience, and so what we do and say matters a whole ton, right? Is it actually reinforcing the things that we want them to walk away with?
Yes.
If not,
Modeling. You are modeling every day through your language and your body language.
yeah, and I can't say we've been perfect, but I think we are doing the best that we can. And as long as you are doing the best, then students will resonate with that, right? Young people will resonate with that.
They absolutely will. Oh my gosh, Tán, you added so much value to our Founder Journey lives today. I am so grateful that you joined me on the show and brought such wisdom and insight, but also your own starter journey. These startup stories are so valuable for other founders. And I know you have created a ripple effect out there today for other founders. And of course, every day you're doing that for our youth, for our high school students. I'm deeply grateful for you and Amanda for both having the courage to say, this is what we're going to work toward. We're not sure how it's going to look, but we know how it's going to feel.
Yeah.
And we're going to focus on that. And we're going to focus on building that community and making it happen. And especially for being so young, I just admire the courage it takes and resilience and tenacity to do that. And I'm excited to follow your journey and continue to cheer you on everywhere you go. Any last thoughts for founders before I pop you in the green room and wrap up?
Yeah. I mean, look, you're going to face a lot of hard days ahead of you, and then you are going to want to just quit all the time, and you will probably lose faith along the way. But I think just keep reminding yourself of why you signed up to do this, right? And maybe like one day you'll just randomly end up on Forbes 30 under 30.
As someone we know? Yes, Tán?
Thanks so much, Andy, for having me. Really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for joining us. I'm going to pop you in the green room and do a quick wrap up here. Thank you. Bring myself up into solo here. Everybody, I tell you, I knew we would be just grabbing the gems from Tán today, following this cycle, that this timeline actually of how they built and how they focused on community, and that how that really differentiates them from anybody else who's going to enter their space, but also how they really honor the group, the age group of 14 to 18 on every level, not just educational, but on the community and connection and collaboration level as well. So I'm so excited that he joined us and so thrilled to share him with you. And let me share with you what's happening on Tuesday, December 21st on the Startup Life Live Show. That's right. It's the second annual Andelicious Startup Life holiday celebration with the mouthy activist and opinionated blogger, Mia Voss. Please grab your favorite beverage and come share your holiday cheer and what 2021 taught you and your business. You know, me and I go there, okay? And we will, I guess I'm not going to say I'm going to be drinking too much because I can't drink and stream at the same time, but we want to hear your stories and celebrate the year with you. So be sure to join the Meetup team so you get the Meetup group at Startup Life Live on Meetup. So you get an alert whenever I go live, or just follow me everywhere I go online. I'm so grateful you carved out time for you and your founder journey. And I'm wishing you continued success. Remember, every day that you show up is a success. All right. You are pulling on the threads and solving the problems and making things work. And so I'm so proud of all of you. And I just want you to remember, as you are on this journey here, that you're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and wicked smarter than you think. Woo! I'm cheering you on and wishing you a delicious day everywhere you glow. You're amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in. Mwah to all of you.